I'm going to share with you the exact pre-race food we've used with 500 plus enduro races. That's easy to get access to, that fuels the exact energy system you use when you race, that's easy on your stomach, that will let you ride hard for at least 1 hour longer at your next enduro race, without force feeding yourself or buying overpriced moto supplements so you can actually kick ass on race day. So we're going to have a look at some footage here from Wildwood from JA Edits, who's put together some great shots over the weekend. So there's three components to finding the perfect pre-race food. The first component is that we need to be able to use a fuel that converts to energy the fastest. So when you're out riding and you're doing this stuff, like you're going through logs, going up steeper sections, we'll skip forward a little bit here and have a look a little bit more at what's happening at the race. When you're going through water like that, your body is using a lot of energy. Okay, and especially with the longer races like Wildwood Hard Enduro. So the body uses what we call ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Okay, and so that's the energy that your body uses to be able to go and do stuff. All of the food that you consume converts into ATP to be able to allow you to do what you want to do with your body. So what we need is foods that convert into ATP as fast as possible when we're racing, because we're chewing through so much energy, because we're working really hard. Especially with enduros and hard enduros, we're working really hard, but we're doing it for a long period of time. We're doing it for 2, 3, 4 hours plus, and some days, multiple days in a row. So quick information for you, because I know I'm going to get some people argue in the comments about this. So just wanted to give you some facts. If you want to discuss it in the comments, more than happy to do that. Protein converts into energy at a rate of 3 to 5 hours. Okay, so it takes quite a long time for you to be able to break down protein and actually get the energy from it and be able to use it. Fats convert at a rate of anywhere from 3 to 6 hours. Okay, so also a long time to be able to convert what you're eating into actual energy that you can use. Carbohydrates convert at a rate of 15 to 30 minutes, okay, into energy. So we've got 3 to 5 hours for protein, about 3 to 6 hours for fats, and then 15 to 30 minutes for carbohydrates. So that's why carbohydrates are so great at fueling our riding, is because they can be converted into ATP and fuel the energy systems that we're using on the bike very, very quickly in comparison to proteins and fats. Doesn't mean you can't race and have fats and have proteins. It doesn't mean you're not going to be able to finish an event if you don't have carbs. It's just the most efficient, most effective way is using carbohydrates. So look forward to the comments on that one. The mistakes I made with this was I just used to put anything in my body. Okay, so like have a look at these guys. I think they're doing this looks like prologue that they're getting out for, that they're doing at the moment, is when you get out for prologue. So let's say for this specific rider here, right? Let's say that was me. What I was doing is I was like, all right, I'm getting out for this race. I just need to give my body something. So I'd have things like protein bars. I'd have things like energy drinks. Like we had this Dark Dog stuff, which was kind of like Red Bull, like a caffeine drink. Any food was energy. There was times there, I remember being at the motocross track and be having like steak sandwiches right before I'm about to go and race. And then there'd be times where I'd have nothing because I'd be like, oh, I don't really feel like eating and I don't want to get anything in. And so those mistakes that I made meant that I'd either rock up into the race and have no energy because I've had no food, right? So I've got nothing in, I'm starving, my brain's going woo, off with the fairies, can't focus very well, don't really feel that strong or energized to get out there and race. And that would be one angle. The other angle that I'd have is I'd put stuff in and I might have that steak sandwich, or I might have the protein bar, but it just sits in my stomach. And it sits in my stomach and it's not being broken down, not being digested because it's so heavy. And then so when I go out and ride again, you just feel lethargic. You're like, I don't feel motivated and like, hell yeah, I'm ready to get out there and race. I feel like I'm ready to go to sleep and have a rest. So when you dial this in, so like for this specific rider, if he's able to dial in his pre-race food, it means that you go into the race starting with your energy tank full, but you've got like a lightness to it. It's like you have the energy ready to go, but you don't feel like you've just stuffed your stomach full of stuff, right? You don't feel heavy. It's like a lightness that you feel, as well as a sharpness and an energy. You're excited to be able to get out there and race, rather than, especially at the end of these bigger enduros, you know, sometimes it gets to the point where you're like, oh shit, like, is it over yet? Is it over? You want to try and avoid that. And sometimes it's a mindset problem, but a lot of the times it's just a fueling problem. your body hasn't got any fuel. So it's telling you that it's shutting down, it doesn't want to do this anymore. And that's what makes hard enduro extra hard. The second thing that has to happen is it has to be easily digestible. Okay, so if you look at, like, let's say for this rider here, going over these tires, using a lot of energy going over there, moving your body a lot, puts your body under a lot of stress. So I'm going to skip forward here because I want to show you guys some of the actual riding stuff. Let's have a look here. So let's say for this rider, right? He's going up, it's like through a, looks like a uphill rock garden. That's pretty rough, right? So let's say for this particular rider here, he's picking his bike up in the middle of what's like a massive uphill rock garden with big rocks rather than smaller rocks. And so his body's under stress. The reason his body's under stress is because he's physically exerting himself. So if we go back to the caveman days, well, why would your body trigger its stress response when you're exercising? Because it thinks you're trying to get away from something. Okay, anytime you're pushing your body really, really hard, it's assuming that there's some sort of threat and we're trying to get away from something. So what it does is your body will shut down non-essential systems in your body to give you more energy in that moment to get away from the threat. Okay, so what that means in this scenario, so let's say for this rider, he's triggered his stress response, like, because he's been out there riding anyway. He's definitely triggered it now that he's having to work even extra hard to get his bike up. His body is, the stress response has been triggered, or was already triggered before. He's made it worse by falling off and having to pick up the bike. That means he's shutting down the non-essential systems. Okay, and I'm doubling up here on what I'm saying. Non-essential systems at this stage is digestion. Okay, his body is not worried about trying to digest food. Okay, your body is not using energy to try and digest food. That digestive system is shut down. It's trying to give him all the energy he can to be able to get away from the threat. Okay, his body and brain don't know that it's not a threat. He's not trying to, escape a big lion chasing after him, and he's actually just doing a bike race. So what happens then is, if you're trying to force feed food in like I used to do, that food actually doesn't get broken down. Okay, it doesn't. The food might go in, but you don't actually get the energy from it because it's not broken down for you to be able to get the energy anyway. Okay, even if you did have the right stuff going in. So the food has to be easily digestible. When you don't eat easily digestible foods, what happens is you get to this stage and you get to tough sections like this, and you just feel like your stomach's full of food, you've got no energy, you feel slower, you feel sluggish, you might even start to feel sick, especially with hard enduro where there's a lot of rocking and backwards and forwards and getting up and down. You're probably just going to feel terrible, right? You're probably going to go, shit, I shouldn't have had that. But then at the same time, if you didn't have it, that's a tough section, isn't it? Then if you didn't have it, then you'd be like, oh, well, I should have eaten something because now I feel shit from not eating, right? So again, when you can dial this in and you eat easily digestible food before you go and race, and you eat the right type of carbohydrates, like we discovered in point 1, you just feel energized, you'll feel light, you'll feel sharp, you'll feel ready to go, okay? You don't want to be feeling like you've got a whole stomach full of food. It's not going to be fun. The third thing is that the food for your pre-race meal, or just food in general, needs to be easily accessible. So when you're racing at a racetrack, let's say Wildwood, like you're out in the middle of nowhere, right? You need to be able to access the right type of carbs 15 to 30 minutes before your race, right? For you guys out there doing hard enduro, that's usually when you're getting the bike ready, you might be lining up, you're in like staging or in the, the pits before you actually get out on the line. And so it has to be easily accessible, right? If you have to have this big concoction of stuff that you've got to have and how it's got to be prepared and organized, then you're probably not going to be able to actually get it in the real world. Might sound good in theory, but it actually doesn't happen when you get out there on race day. So the mistake that I made with this is I didn't have anything planned with my food, right? So I'd either have no food if it was close to the race, or I'd eat hours before the race. So either way, I'd end up with no energy because I was either not having food before the race, or I was only eating a few hours before the race, or I was, worst case scenario, like forcing food in beforehand. Okay, just stuff that was easy to get my hands on, like protein bars. And so again, it's like when you do this, you ride like shit, you get inconsistent results, you tend to get worse results at the end of the day when the track's rough and you get tired, right? That's where the guys that dial in their nutrition and get this right is they're able to have consistent energy all the way through the race. They can keep pushing and pushing and pushing all the way for 6, 7, 8 hours a day and back that up multiple days in a row. The guys that don't know this are really good at the start for the first hour, and once they get past that first hour, they just drop off. Okay, they hit the wall. Okay, is the term. They just get to that point where they're just like, and that's where their bodies just run out of energy. They're cooked. Yes, hard enduro is hard, but it shouldn't be that hard. Okay, there's things you can do to make it. It should be hard because of the technical stuff. It shouldn't be hard because your body's breaking down. So again, when you dial this in, you're able to push all day and you just enjoy your riding and racing a lot more. So the best foods that we've found for riders are any simple carbohydrates that are super easy to digest. Okay, so things that you can use, I'll put some pictures up on the screen. You can use a carbohydrate gel. You can use a sports drink that's high in carbs like a Powerade or Gatorade, some sort of hydration electrolyte, as long as it's got carbs in it, drink. Otherwise, you can use pieces of fruit as well. So there's a few options there that will, if you're not doing any of that stuff and you're just having nothing, just getting a serving of any of those in before you go and ride, you're going to notice a big difference because you're actually putting fuel in the tank rather than getting out there and riding with an empty tank. So if you'd like a free copy of the Enduro nutrition guide that we use with our races, I'll put the link in the description. It'll tell you exactly what to do. Obviously, the pre-race is important, but once you've got your carbs topped up at the start, you need to keep topping them up through the race. You can't just top up once and expect that to last for 3 hours. You need to be doing it. There's a strategy that you need to use every hour, and then you need to recover after the race. So that's all mapped out for you. If you want a copy of that and you want a little bit more detail, click the link in the description.